Today on What Went Wrong, we shoot the shit. That was bad.
That was good. I loved it. Keep that stuff.
Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and I've shot over 40 feature films. And pretty much all of them have gunfights in them. And one of my, not even pet peeves, but just one of those things that I know about Jeff, that when we sit down and watch a movie and we're watching, he's at some point in the movie, he's going to reach over, grab the remote control, click it, pause, and look at me and give me that, what were you thinking?
What were you thinking?
But I remember when originally I didn't really, it was just about, oh, I want to do this, it's cool, it's this. But I didn't realize the power of the little things. And I remember, and I'm probably going to tell your story about this, but it was a movie called Night Watchman. And you weren't even watching it with me at the time. I think you were in...
I was in Germany. I was still in the military.
You're watching it, and somebody comes up, and he's ready to shoot, and bam! And you stopped it, and you backed it up. And it wasn't a, what did you do? It was a, wait a minute, what did you do there? Kind of a thing. And it was the first time that I put the shell bounce in one of my films.
Right.
And it added, consciously, subconsciously, that realism to it.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the first time that I started paying attention to that. Now, I couldn't always do that.
No.
But there came times where it was like, okay, this is the time I need Jeff to step in and help choreograph this scene.
Right.
There were moments in, and I think a very good example of taking both worlds and meshing them together was the laundromat scene.
Yeah.
In Chapter 3 of The Innocence
Yeah,
Saga.
that was a good one.
Because you took control of the firearms, and Matt took control of the martial arts, and the two of you working together were able to meld the two ideologies of the two different types of scenes.
Right.
Now, there are some unrealistic things, and it just is, they're always going to be.
Right.
But it still maintained, that consistency. So it poses the question: do you have somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to firearms and how firearms really work? Is it worth it to have that on your set? And I would say yes.
The scene you're talking about in particular, I remember it very well, is when the hero, the main protagonist, shot something or shot somebody, and I heard this, the shell. It completely sold that whole scene. Everything that was going on. This is for me. Once again, we talk about making movies for me. Bad idea. Because no one will get it, but I'll love it. But I'm not your audience. But when he shot, because subconsciously, most people know how guns work. The gun, like the automatic loading pistol, but it has the magazine, you put it in. People have seen those in the movies since, gangster movies, when they first had the 1911 Colt 45. And everyone understands that when it shoots, it ejects the cartridge. And ping, 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 ping. Now, had a boy had a revolver and I heard ping, 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 that wouldn't have made any sense to me.
It's like Airplane, the movie Airplane, where where they show the exterior of the jet, the 747.
Yeah, it's a 747.
And you hear the propellers.
Now, if you're making a ridiculous movie, who cares? Put it in there. But if you're not, that's going to really bother people. And the thing is, had you not put it in there, most people wouldn't have noticed it really, but I did. And it sold the whole scene to me. For me, it's a conscious thing. For other people, it's a subconscious thing. Because I pay attention, because I'm weird, I pay attention to the weird little details, especially when it comes to firearms, because I've had so much experience with it.
But you don't even need to have all that much experience. And if you make a film with a gunfight, you, as the director, should without a doubt go to a range.
Yes.
And experience that.
Yes.
There are things that there's two things I'm going to discuss here. First, silencer. Second, full auto.
Yeah.
First, the silencer. In the earlier films, you would have somebody doing something stealthy. So you'd just have that little puff.
Right.
And at that time when I was doing those films, I didn't know what real silencers were, how they really work.
Right.
And then somewhere along the way, early 2000s, I think I heard, it doesn't work that way. It actually just lowers the decibels a little bit. So,
so it doesn't destroy your hearing.
Exactly. But I still kind of did it, and I did it in the Innocence Saga. Well, as I've been going back and re-editing it, it's driving me nuts now. So there are no more silenced gunshots in the new version of the Innocence Saga.
Right.
Even when they're, supposed to be, kind of stealthy, and they've got the silencer on, I will just lower, I'll actually I'll combine an actual gunshot with that sound effect. So people can still get that, because it's a cool sound effect.
It is a cool sound effect. That pew pew, I love it.
But you still get that full gunshot. You can tell that it's a little bit lower than other gunshots. But I've stopped doing that because I know that there's enough people out there now that understand that, and I'm keeping people like you in mind that are going to go. And it wasn't really, a lot of those scenes weren't really necessary to do that anyways. And it didn't ruin the scene because now you could hear the gunshot. Right. The second thing, go to a range, and probably have to go to Las Vegas or something to be able to fire full auto. Yeah. But do it, because I've got sort of a 50-50 kind of way that I shoot my action scenes, and particularly my gunfights. Sometimes I'll go in knowing exactly what I want to do. Other times I have no idea, and I just show up on set and say, okay, we're going to do this. And then there are times where it's, like in this particular scene, things just, we were starting to run out of time. It's like, okay, I built myself into this corner because I didn't plan this out. So how am I going to finish this up? So I just have Montoya grab 2 full autos, walk in, single hand, one in each hand, blah, blah, blah. Like I think you say, like with the intensity of a garden sprinkler.
Yeah.
And now after going to Vegas and shooting a full auto, especially like the old Thompson. The old Thompson machine gun.
That's 45 cal. That's a big bullet.
AK-47. So address that scene in particular.
Well, talking about that scene, I also want to talk about silencers, because they're anyone who knows them calls them suppressors, and all it really does is takes it from the sound of a jet engine over your head to like a jet engine way over there. It takes it down from like 140 to 150 decibels down to like 120 decibels. Just won't permanently ruin your hearing, but the thing that makes that loud noise isn't the explosion, it's the fact that the bullet's going faster than the speed of sound. Mm-hmm. And what do you get when you have something going faster than the speed of sound? Sonic boom. And that's what
a bullwhip is.
It's like a bullwhip. It's what makes all that noise. It's the shock waves created when something goes faster than the speed of sound. It creates a shock cone, and everything behind that shock cone hears that loud noise. So even though you may have put a suppressor on the flames and the explosion coming out of the barrel, you've not done anything about that supersonic round. It's still going faster than the speed of sound. In some cases, twice the speed of sound. Because there's a lot of things happening in that sound. There's the breaking of the sound barrier. Mm-hmm. There's the actual cap of the mini explosive going on. Right. And there's that metal hammer. Right. And that's pretty loud to begin with. It can be loud. Just dry firing. Click. And when you have the silencer on a gun in one of the movies, that hammer hitting just that metal on metal is louder than that you would hear in James Bond movies. Right. And I've used weapons with a suppressor and subsonic ammunition. You have to use a special kind of depending on what kind of weapon you're using, you have to have a special gas system and gas return, because now you have less explosion, so less force, and it's a very weird thing you have to do. They have to be specially tuned to handle that. It's not easy, and they malfunction. They can malfunction quite a bit. And even then, it's still a loud, it sounds like you're taking 2 boards and clapping them together, just because you can't avoid just the amount of noise that's happening inside this device. And so it never sounds like that little noise that people think of when they hear silencers. And when you tell people you run out silencer, then they're thinking that you're just going to walk around and be able to walk through a building and go plap, 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 and just kill everybody. Well, no, that's not how it works. The rounds are still going supersonic. And if you have someone who could spend the money on a weapon that uses subsonic ammunition and a suppressor, it's very doubtful they're going to kill themselves, because they have to make a lot of money to do that. And successful people make money. They're not using that thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars it would take to then walk through a building and kill everybody inside. That's not how it works. It's never happened. All right, so anyway, getting off of that and talking about the gunfight. Yes, that gunfight, when I saw that guy walk in with an M16 in one hand and an AK-47 in the other hand, and was holding him at full extension and just going, Coming back. I was just like, oh my God, what the hell, And we've talked about that. Yeah, that scene drove me crazy.
And that scene, actually, that is one of the changes in the saga. I have deleted that scene.
Yeah.
It drove me nuts. Once you know, there's no universe building that's going.
There's nothing you can do.
You couldn't, and we talk about sort
even
of
holding an AK-47 like that, it's going to wear your arm out pretty quick. Those things weigh 10 pounds.
And going into, we've talked about this. We even played on this in The Project, where you have the little 5 foot nothing girl, weighs 98 pounds, kicking a 300-pound bodyguard, and they fly across the room. But you go in there and you say, oh, she's the daughter of a god. Okay, cool, they got it.
Yeah.
But even if Wonder Woman herself walks in with it is now no longer about her strength. It is about the fact that these guns are just going to recoil like that and not give you anything. So there's just no way out.
She may be strong enough to hold them down, but the problem is the recoil they're going to have isn't going to allow her to have the accuracy that you would need.
Yeah.
Because you could put it in a concrete block and set it up and point it at something. You start squeezing that thing off, the bullets are going to go all over the place. Just because that's the nature of the creature. That's just how it is.
Definitely, you want to, especially if you do action films, you need to go out and you need to fire.
Yes.
You need to understand how they work, and maybe you'll start realizing how the anti-Second Amendment arguments are completely
kind of
dumb. Understand them. So that you can choreograph the scene well.
Right. Come at your. I talk about the craft. When you talk about that, I say I'm not an actor. The reason I say I'm not an actor is it's not my craft, so I don't work on it. I think someone who's going to do a craft needs to do it very well. The craft I do have, I work intensely hard to make sure I get it right. It's very important that I get it right. But if you're going to be a movie maker, you have to know what you're doing, because audiences are just too sophisticated nowadays. We talked about trusting your audience. Well, you need to also know they're trusting you to make a good movie, to let them have this moment of escapism, okay? But in that moment of escapism, if people want to see a fantasy movie or want to see a sci-fi movie, they'll go. But if people want to see Heat, if people want to watch Saving Private Ryan, also in a fantastic gunfight, and showed what these weapons will do. It also showed the other side of what happens when you get shot by these weapons. It ain't pretty. I've seen it. It's not pretty. Invest your time and effort as a filmmaker. You owe it to the audience.
And as an actor or actress, if you're in one of these scenes, go to a range too.
Go to a range.
To her credit, Sally Colombo, and funny little story about that, but she knew that she was going to be, in these scenes, so she actually went to a range. She's got the goggles on, everything, and she fires for the first time, and that shell pops up and it lands right in between your glasses, right there. And so if you look at it, she's got this tiny little scar.
That's awesome.
in the entire saga, because that's probably going to be with her forever.
And I know why that happens. It's a question. Her grip wasn't right, but that's not the point. It's and you can see, like I said, that is something that, as an actress, and to her credit, that's a great idea, because that way she knew how to react. She knew what it was like. She knew
what the recoil feels like.
Right, and so you could give it the proper, because you got someone who's like shooting a 380, which is a little short 9mm round. They go boosh like this. Like, oh, come on, But if they're holding like a 45. Especially like a Glock, because they're very light. We're getting into gun nerd stuff now. But if you shoot that thing, and it's not a really heavy pistol, boom, it's going to give you a pretty good kick. Same thing with like a 44 Magnum or a 357. Those are the smaller the firearm, the bigger the kick it's going to be, and you're going to feel that. Same thing like M16s, M4s, the AR-15 rifle doesn't kick very much. The AK-47 does. And so you need to understand, if you're holding an M4 or an M16 or whatever, and you're shooting it, it's not doing this. It's very small, very light. Whereas if you have an AK-47, it's going to rock and roll, because it's a much larger round. And the springs piston system in the air, the AK, is different than the much softer, much nicer firing M16. So you need to understand that. Because once again, you're going to be like doing this with an M16, and people are going to be like,
Now, actually, ever since we really brought Jeff Stantz into the mix, I don't think you've ever really been in a gunfight in the Innocent Saga, and whatnot. But in some of our older films, you did.
Yeah.
I remember like Blue Moon.
Right.
You
Had that big old monster pistol.
Yeah. I try to use blank pistols whenever possible because it helps the actors,
Right.
and you get that shell ejecting and everything.
The report.
But of course, you want to be safe. If you want to take that, fully safe route, and go with the airsoft pistols, the plastic. You as an actor, do you feel a difference between being on set with an airsoft? I don't think you've ever used a blank pistol in one of ours, but kind of just comparing it. Do you think it makes a difference having a blank pistol versus an airsoft, which is just a 1 pound piece of plastic?
It's the gravitas that the machine holds. Certain things have a certain amount of gravitas to them, have a certain amount of weight, and I mean that literally and also actually. An oil tanker has a lot of weight, but it also has a lot of gravitas. It's big, it's impressive. You feel something standing, or if you've ever been in the water next to one, it's this huge thing, and it commands a certain amount of respect. When you're holding an actual firearm, an actual weapon, at least if you know what you're doing, you will treat it differently than you would a piece of plastic or even a blank pistol. A blank pistol is going to give you more of that gravitas because it has more weight. And so you're going to treat it a little bit differently. Now, it also depends on how good your actors are. Because a good actor will make that 1 pound piece of plastic seem like a 10 pound AK-47. They won't whip it around. They'll have a certain heft to it. When they go to pick it up, you'll see their shoulders. A good actor will think about these things, because when you pick up an AK-47, a loaded one, with the 30 rounds in that magazine, it's a heavy. You've held one. They're heavy. They weigh a lot, but they have a certain amount of weight to them. And a good actor should be able to translate that. But for the actor themselves, they have to understand that I am holding a 1 pound piece of plastic, but this 1 pound piece of plastic is representing to the audience a crafted weapon. And I need to be able to, for lack of a better word, emote, I guess, to translate that to the audience. So yeah, a blank weapon, because they're heavy. I mean, I've held your blank weapons. And so it gives, whenever an actor will pick it up and go to present it, it gives a certain amount of gravitas, which it needs.
Yeah.
Plastic things, and I could see it in certain things when I was watching your movie, and I know that's a piece of plastic. And the person who was holding it didn't translate to me that it wasn't a piece of plastic. And so it's like, Now, once again, don't make movies for me. I'm weird and I think about all these things. But your typical person, it's not that they would notice it necessarily. But
up here, back here, you're noticing it. Just like in a piece of CGI where the shadows aren't working. You don't realize that's what makes CGI bad. Is your brain will pick up on, well, gravity doesn't work that way. You're not thinking that, but your brain is going, wait, I've seen a guy, I've seen how people fall. That's not how things fall.
That's not right. Yeah. Subconsciously, even if you only saw it for a second, subconsciously your brain will recognize that picture wasn't right.
Yeah.
And you may not know, even if you hadn't seen, like you weren't paying attention, or maybe you just didn't catch it, you would still catch that something in that scene is wrong, and it would bother you, and your brain would put a big X on it, because your brain does that. Your brain will see things that you don't necessarily see, and it assigns it. Your brain will just kind of assign it a certain importance, whatever it is. And when it sees something that's off, it flags it, and it's gonna ruin the shot.
Well, now you know the differences of real firearms, fake firearms, how you need to pay attention to the smaller details, whether you're making a science fiction film or one set in reality. These things do matter.